Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me from Rocky Top Insider, Ryan Schumpert here, taping this on a Sunday night. I don't even know if we've ever done a Sunday night. We're flipping it this week with the schedule, so pod divided tomorrow with Matt Green. But yeah, Ryan, I don't know. Have we ever done a Sunday night pod?
I'm sure we have. We've recorded so many different days of the week. I feel like one year we did Sunday nights after baseball and during baseball season.
Okay.
Actually, last fall, 2023 fall, we did Sunday nights. We would try to hit in between the afternoon games and Sunday night football.
Yeah.
We tried to hit like that hour, 45 minutes in between. So for sure have. I don't know if we have in basketball season, but I'd be surprised if. I guess we probably have never done Saturdays, or Fridays, but the 5 other days of the week, I feel pretty confident we've hit all those.
Saturday's a tough one. Like, I just gotta have the Saturdays. It's just hard to do anything productive on a Saturday. I mean, outside of we have games to watch and take notes and pod and write about, but I don't know. I've never been up like the Saturday pod for me. As you know, Ryan, I've done pod every day a week for a long time. I've done a lot of pods, but I will tell you, Saturdays are the hardest to do of any day for me.
Well, you just also have like you said, just all the games going on. So
yeah,
it's just a little immediate. Obviously, you're not going to do anything before the games. Game times vary.
And I'm not a morning potter. And you got to be a morning potter.
You're a night guy.
I'm a night guy. That's why you're a night owl. I'm definitely naturally a night owl, but I would love to be a morning person. I would love to be naturally a morning person. Like, my dad's always been like, it's just easy for him to get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock every day, and I'm like, I would love to do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to push in that direction. I'm not naturally a morning person, but I'm trying to force myself to be a morning person slowly and surely.
The data on it, and the more stuff I read on it, like the science behind it, kind of bumps me out more. That and your palate, because I've always wanted to expand my food palate, and then you're like, so much of it's decided when you're a little kid, and you're like, oh, awesome. Then your food palate can change a little bit, but mostly your taste buds stay kind of what they are when you're a kid, and it's hard to fight your internal clock. It's hard to go from being a night owl to a morning person. I mean, it's not easy.
No, a lot of hard work and caffeine.
Goodness gracious. Well, Ryan Schumpert, speaking of hard work and caffeine, that's what we needed to get through Tennessee Auburn with an 8:30 tip last night, East Coast time, in Auburn, Alabama, where the Tennessee Volunteers fell on the road. They moved to 4-3 now in SEC play, but they're back home with Kentucky this week, Florida at home this week, 3 home games straight, which is huge because Tennessee is going to be really, really difficult to beat in TBA this season, as we've seen. But Ryan, your strongest takeaway, your strongest feeling coming out of Tennessee's loss on the road last night at Auburn was what?
It's probably more about Auburn than anything. That just underwhelmed by them. And Tennessee did a great job. I just didn't think Tennessee would be able to dictate terms of the game in the way they did. I did not think Tennessee would be able to drag this Auburn team into a game that was, in a lot of ways, not the second half, last 15 minutes of the game, I thought both teams played a lot better on offense. But in a lot of ways was similar to the game 2 years ago in Knoxville that was like 45-42, something to that extent. Which, again, like that's a good credit to Tennessee. I think you go to not that this is shocking, but you look at the Florida game, and I don't know, I guess we probably didn't talk right after the Florida game. I guess we talked after the Texas game, so we talked more about that. But what I said and what I wrote for the Florida game was the disappointing thing to me more than anything wasn't that Tennessee missed shots. It was that they missed shots and it seemed like they let it affect every single other aspect of the game. They didn't play good defense. They were soft on the glass. They became very tentative offensively. And I didn't think any of that happened. I mean, it was a very similar start for Tennessee at Auburn as it was at Florida. Instead, they played great defense. They were bad. They were soft out of the gates, bad on the glass, bad turnovers in the first 5 minutes. But they didn't seem to let it phase them. And even though the offense obviously wasn't good, I didn't think Tennessee played tentative on offense. So I think that's all the positive aspects. I mean, I thought Tennessee would lose by more than 2 points. I think there's obviously there's good reason for anger or being upset at the missed opportunity. You're up 4 with 2:07 left. You're shooting the free throw against the number one team in the country on the road at a place you have not won much, at a place that's very hard to win. It's hard not to be in that spot and not feel like, oh man, it's just what a missed opportunity not to finish that one out. And I think that's completely fair. But at the same time, I think there are reasons to be positive leaving that game if you're Tennessee. When you look at it as far as like a pecking order type situation, seeing where you're at compared to some of the best teams in the sport, and it was certainly a much, much better showing than a few weeks prior at Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was absolutely a better showing than what we saw against Florida. But to get that close and to feel like honestly, I thought coming away, like Tennessee was about to close this out. I don't know if you felt the same when they got up a couple baskets and late in the game, you're like, oh, the way this game's going, I think Tennessee's just going to close this out. They didn't, and look, I think the last shot, there were some fans who were really upset at Zakai shooting in the corner. It was an open look, 8 seconds on the clock. Different thoughts on that of like, hey, get it up at 8. It was a good out of the timeout play call. Now, you could say Zakai in the corner. Zakai's from 3 is probably not where you want, but Zakai's hit a lot of big shots for Tennessee over the years. You don't hate it, Zakai in the corner. But you also wonder about the 8 seconds. But it's also like, I saw someone on the VolQuest forums when they were debating this. I thought an interesting point. I thought I would like, just like, even if you disagree with the shot, it still put you in a position for Felix Okpara putback or whatever, because it's not like it makes more sense to take that or to grind it out to the last 2 to 1 seconds if you're tied and make sure that Auburn doesn't get another possession. But if you get that up early, and you miss it, you have an opportunity for an offensive rebound, this, that, and the other. And obviously it did not go that way for Tennessee, but they also almost got the ball back because of the travel right there at the end after the miss and everything. So they almost had maybe 2 seconds to get another shot up and another opportunity because they got that shot up with 8 seconds to go. But, I mean, it was in and out. It was a good look for Zakai, but I also I don't know. I mean, I think there's been the conventional wisdom is like, okay, Tennessee probably beats that Auburn team. If they play like that at home, they beat them pretty handedly with the way Tennessee played in a really tough environment against the number one offense in college basketball. So I understand the glass half full approach because Tennessee obviously does move up to number one in KenPom and really gave Auburn's offense all they can handle all night. But it's still the same stuff that you kind of worry about come March, because we're at a point now in the Barnes era where the floor is so high. You make the Elite Eight last year. You're in the number one seed talk this year. You have this great start. Last year you were kind of plagued by, you had a really, really brutal schedule. You're in Maui. You're playing good team after good team. Like, you got your brains beat in a little bit early, and we're just playing some really, really stiff competition. This year, you go into SEC play unscathed. Like, if there was ever a year that you were going to get a number one seed coming into SEC tournament play for the first time in school history, this was the year, because of what you did and how much you took care of business early on, that the number one seed is just so important, because that's the final boss. That's the reason you didn't make the Final Four this past year, is because you got locked into Purdue's bracket. The one team you couldn't really get locked into was Zach Edey, and that was the difference between you being an Elite Eight out versus a Final Four team, I think, last year. So I look at it as like, now you got 3 losses in SEC play. You got 2 more, basically, the rest of the way. You lose 3 or more, then you're not getting a 1 seed. So if the Vanderbilt lost and haven't, I think the problem is that you have 2 of those close losses that you really should have won, and just get one of those 2 on the road, either at Vanderbilt or at Auburn. I think this matters less. But to me, when you look at the schedule and you look at who's still on the calendar, I think there's some what if stuff here with Tennessee at this point, where you're like, man, everything fell pretty nicely for them coming into SEC play, and now they're trying to keep their head above water here in SEC play. And I understand it's the best conference in college basketball this year, but I think it's just because the standard is so high and the expectations were so high coming into SEC play that you're just kind of like, man, I just want a 1 seed. Like, I don't, but that's a testament to what Barnes has built this program into. But you will never get a better chance for a 1 seed than this year and what they had coming into SEC play. And I think they're going to be kicking themselves for a while because I don't think it's now in play. I think this loss kind of takes you out of it because I just don't think they're going to get away with only 2 losses the rest of conference play. And it's just tough, man. I don't know. I'm just kind of bummed out because I'm like, I really, really thought this was a 1 seed team.
You were just so wrong about that.
Yeah.
Have me sit here and rip you for a minute because this is the stuff that infuriates me. Like, it's upsetting by these unfair expectations that were built up. Like, people, and not you said this, but you were not the only one. Was like early on after like 2 good wins was like, I think, and look, the analytics stuff said it. It was like, all right, this team's even better than last year. They're better offensively. And it's just like, to me, it was never that definitive. It's like, okay, maybe, but they're still, the sample size was so small. When Tennessee's undefeated, they have 2 really good wins in non-conference play, another good win. They played a bunch of horrible Power 5 teams. So in that sense, their resume was significantly hurt by the fact that playing 3 ACC teams were a bunch of quad 3 and quad 4 games for them. So in that sense, I don't really see how this resume did set them up to be a 1 seed. It set them up to be undefeated, to be the number 1 team in the country. I don't think it set them up to be a 1 seed, at a super just unbelievable level or anything like that.
I mean, they were a number 1 team in the country for a month because of what the schedule gave them. And
yes, but those are 2 completely different
But
things.
the narrative was strong. I mean, they were getting number 1 seed buzz. I mean, Lenardi's had him in there like off and on. Like that absolutely helped the narrative of them getting, because that's part of it. Like, you need the narrative on your side.
Narrative's not reality though.
But the narratives matter.
Narrative in December does no. The narrative in December means nothing. It means absolutely nothing in December. It matters in February, sure. It matters in March some. It doesn't matter in December when you've played 3 opponents that, as we sit here recording this on January 26th, they played 3 Power 5 opponents that have not been eliminated from making the NCAA tournament at this point. Virginia's been eliminated. Syracuse has been eliminated. Miami's been eliminated. Those teams are horrible. They are trash. You played 3 teams, 2 teams that were good on the road, really good wins. Don't get me wrong, but none of them were elite. Tennessee didn't beat Iowa State and Maui. They didn't, play Duke in obviously I know Auburn lost the game, but they didn't beat a team like Duke. So to me, that's just where I think this expectation, I get being bummed out by it, but I just think it sets up this unfair expectation in which this team's being judged now of, well, you got everything is just in the lens of getting a 1 seed, and I just don't get viewing things that way.
That's how we are with baseball, and they run with it, man. That's how we are with Tennessee baseball. It's like, hey, everything is now through making it to Omaha. Like, the expectation every year now is to make it to Omaha, and you're expected to really host in supers. Seed. I mean, you're been a 1 seed.
You're sitting there begging them not to get the number 1 overall seed because you don't think they can win at all when they get that. That's a lot different than wanting. Like,
can I throw out the other reason why I wanted the 1 seed so much this year? It's because, like, we just don't know that Zakai's back next year. It just feels like this could be, like, we don't know. Maybe Zakai's back if they do the 5th year thing, but it just feels like,
it's up in the air. Yeah.
Yeah, but if he's gone, you're like, man, it's just because he's built up, and it just feels like you want progress to be linear, right? You want the Elite 8 to go into the Final 4. You want to have this great final send-off for Zakai and this group and Jamai, and like, it just felt like I just look at next year as a very much up in the air product in terms of what Tennessee's going to be, in terms of who comes back, this and the other. Like, they could be the best preseason number 1 in the SEC, depending on who comes back next year. They could also be like number 7, 8 in the SEC, depending on who comes back next year.
Yeah.
So that's part of why the 1 seed is so important to me this year, Ryan, is that I just look at this year as a potential just final act in this really, really dominant era of Tennessee basketball with Zakai and company under Barnes. And I just want to give them the best opportunity, or I want to see them have the best opportunity to make a Final Four for Barnes and Tennessee and see what happens. And I think that's the frustrating part, is you're banging on the door, and now it's going to be pretty tight, but I don't think it's going to happen. It doesn't mean they can't make the Final Four, like 2 seeds make the Final Four. It's just the 1 seed history is just so strong that you wanted to get there, and you wanted to get it for Zakai, because Zakai is just playing at an unbelievable level. Like, Zakai was incredible again on Saturday night. Zakai's been your best player all year long. He's taken it to another level, and you just kind of wanted to see a 1 seed in a final linear progression for Tennessee. And I think what you're saying is right in terms of, like, that's not fair to put our expectations and our wants for that team on them. It's like, But it just is. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. It doesn't mean this team is overrated, this team stinks, whatever. It just, the 1 seed just felt in their grasp, and it's just not going to happen. And it's just kind of a bummer.
I think the aspect of like this feeling like a last dance per se is definitely true. Like there's
That's
so
what it
much
feels like.
uncertainty about what Tennessee's basketball pro. I mean, I don't think anybody, at least speaking for myself, would not be surprised at all if Rick Barnes is not the head coach at Tennessee in 3 months. So yeah, certainly it's a completely different feel to things. So yeah, I get that. The one thing I would fight back to on the number 1 seed stuff is I think it being a little bit different from last year is like, with some of those rules, like Tennessee's not gonna, almost certainly Tennessee is not going to get matched up with Auburn in Auburn's region with some of like the SEC teams, interconferences stuff. So then it's kind of like, I don't know. And look, maybe even Auburn, you're not. To me, there's no team that's like Purdue or UConn was last year, where it's like, man, you don't want to be with them. Maybe Duke proves to be that, but like, I don't know. To me, Duke's going to be the unknown because the ACC is just terrible. All these teams that I'm ripping on in Tennessee's non-conference schedule. Duke's just going to be beating those teams and more teams like them. And look, Iowa State's, they're a good team. Like I don't disagree with that, but who's sitting here like Iowa State? They're unbeatable. So I don't think it has quite the feel last year where the entire season UConn felt like for sure the best team. And Purdue felt like for sure the second best team. Now there was a huge cloud around Purdue. Can they win in the tournament? But you knew Purdue was, from what we'd seen, by far the second best team, and also a really bad matchup for Tennessee. And obviously they'd already lost to them at one point in the season. So I get all that. I just also don't. I think that's a stark difference compared to last year too. Is I don't see anybody on the one line that you're just like, man, oh man, you don't want to be in those guys' region.
I think it's true. Do you have a sneaky stat from this game that you like?
Shocking stat is what I would say.
Oh,
that I couldn't believe. What do you make of it stat? And then that was that. So let me find it here in stat broadcast. No, I got it right. Jemiah Mashack minus 14 plus minus 36 minutes. It's crazy. He played 30 minutes. Excuse me, not 36 minutes, but he played 30 minutes and was minus 14. And I felt like he played well last night. It's one of those stats that it's like, and plus minus is always this way where it can be a little misleading in certain instances. I think part of it being, I don't think he was done a ton of favors with the lineups that were put out there around him when he was the 3, which some of that's just like the issue with Jemiah. He's not a shooter. But, I mean, there were stretches in that first half yesterday. I mean, this was unbelievable. Tennessee was playing Jemiah Mashack, Cade Phillips, and Felix Okpara. There were 3 people that you did not have to guard further than 10 feet away from the basket. And there was a stretch. There was at least a possession where instead of Chaz Lanier to 2, it was Bishop Oswald.
Yeah.
And Tennessee scored on back-to-back possessions with that lineup because the guy just got in the paint and hit shots. But then and they put D-Stone in for, I guess it would have been Cade on that last possession in the first half. And I mean, it was a smart move by Bruce. And I mean, it's the guy passed midcourt. And they said, we're double teaming you. We'll let the rest of the team play 4-on-3. And it ended with a contested 16-footer taken by Cade Phillips. So I'm rambling. This is kind of coming back to me now here, 24 hours later. Obviously, a lot of exciting stuff happened in the second half. How insane some of those lineups Tennessee threw out there in the first half were. So I think some of that maybe worked against Jemiah and his plus-minus numbers. But I felt like Jemiah played a good game. And I say it all the time, like, the offense, I don't expect to be good. You hope every 3 or 4 games him to have a good offensive game. Usually comes at home. I just want the defense to be elite, and I felt like the defense was elite last night, besides the one just horrible foul on the 3-point shot when had no prayer going in. And then the fact that like there was that stretch early in the second half. I mean, he, with some help from the refs, sparked a 6-0 run. I mean, when I think Auburn had gotten it to 4 or 5, maybe even 6 points there early in the second half. For the first, I don't know if you felt this way. To me, for the first 33, 34 minutes of the game, it was kind of like, it felt like it could get away from Tennessee at any moment. Which I guess that's just the nature of that style of game that's so low scoring, is if it gets to like 8, you feel like, oh man, this is over. But then it was kind of getting there. Jemai scores a bucket. He makes an incredible defensive play that leads to a Chaz Lanier dunk in transition. And then there was that horrible call in Auburn that he had a couple free throws on. So when you combine like that stretch that was like kind of him sparking offense, combined with the fact that he just locked down Auburn's second leading scorer, didn't make a shot last night. Got to the free throw line with some ridiculous flops in Chad Baker-Mazara. But I felt like he played well and was shocked this morning when I saw those numbers that his plus minus was so bad.
Can I say this? This is something I wrote down, Ryan. It's something that, and I think I tweeted it, or I sent it to the group chat here, the Tennessee Vols Sports Guy group chat. The guy's got to just watch Trae Young in 2021 when Trae guided the Atlanta Hawks to the 2021 Eastern Conference Finals in that season, and then the refs adjusted to Trae, and Trae doesn't do a lot of that stuff anymore. But Zakai has dudes on his back all the time. Zakai can go to the line whenever Zakai wants. I trust him at the line more than anybody. There were so many moments in that game last night where like Zakai, and he had a couple of them where he fell. Like there was one at half court where he's dribbling up and they thought it was a flop from Zakai where he fell. But the dude did trip Zakai. But he falls. And one of the things that's so interesting to me is like he should use that more. And I don't know if they talk to him about that, but like every action where Zakai gets hit or whatever, like he should be going to the line, like fall over. It looks bad. Like it doesn't look good, and they're going to call it, I think, more often than not. But I wish he would pause, like on any fast break, anything like that. Just pause, because the dudes are ripe. They always think they can block your shot. Just wait half a second, let them get on your back, and then just go up. They're going to foul you every time. Like Zakai should be shooting. It was just something I thought about. I was like, Zakai should be shooting like 12 to 14 free throws a game, because he's just so good at getting into the lane anyway. And if he just hesitates a little bit on a lot of these plays, like I think he's going to keep drawing fouls. Like the opponent should be in the bonus all the time. Tennessee should be in the bonus against opponents all the time, because Zakai gets hit all the time and dudes are just trying to keep up with him. If he just slows down a little bit, like Trae was so good at in drawing contact, I don't know. Zakai, it's splitting hairs here because he's your MVP, but it was just something. I don't know if you've noticed that too as Zakai.
I wonder. I think that's a fair point. I wonder how much he gets that call if he does it a lot. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference.
Trae got it for a full year.
Like that's the difference in the joke of NBA officiating and star treatment compared to college basketball, especially you go on the road.
So you think they would adjust mid-season to Zakai doing that more often?
I just think you're not going to get. I say joke of NBA officiating. I think NBA officiating. I'm going to speak to college basketball officiating because I know that better. I think what's called in college basketball officiating changes radically game to game. So I think maybe there's instances like last night where it's getting called and he should use it more.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just necessarily going to be a thing like you're going to get that whistle every single game.
But you like pump fake in the corner. Like have the dudes are crashing the corner on the last play. Pump fake and then let the dude fall into you. You're going to the line for three. And you're making all three.
Are you in college basketball on the road against the number one team?
Like they were going to tackle him. Look at they're flying. They were going to tackle Zakai.
You might get that call. I'm just saying. College basketball is a wild west of officiating.
True.
I mean, 90 seconds earlier, Janai Broom put both of his hands on the shoulder of Felix Okpara and pushed him, and it was called a travel.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he shouldn't have done that. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been called. I'm just saying, not with 100% certainty do I feel like that definitely would have been called. But you know what's funny is
the reason I'm saying all this is what I did in travel. Like this was one of this is the bread and butter of teenage Chase Thomas, Brian Schumpert, is when you're undersized, man, draw contact. It looks so much worse, but I always love doing that. It's just it drove opponents crazy too. Gets in their heads because they're like, I never know when this dude's gonna pump fake, and they're always gonna call it like flop city, man. Like it just. Let's go.
I think this is Chase. I think this is probably the highest compliment I can give you. I hope you take this as a compliment. That was vintage Bill Simmons work by you right there. I mean, that was awesome Bill Simmons work. The guy, we can get Rick and Zakai some Chase AAU tape and teach him how to do it. But to your point as a whole, the one specific play I'd like to see him do it more on, is when he kind of weaves around in the ball screen and he gets to the middle and he's got the guy on the back and he shoots that floater. I wish he would fall more specifically on that shot, because I think that shot he would get the call more, as opposed to just like going to the basket with the help or necessarily all the, stop and start and transition.
Yeah. And Kyrie is one of those, he's an incredible finisher inside. He never went to the line, but it didn't drive you crazy because Kyrie finishes. So it's like, even though he doesn't draw the contact, like he's always like, he's just so good at the rim that it doesn't matter that he's able to maneuver and avoid contact like that. But Sakai, man, just look, man, if I can do it, Sakai can do it. That's what we're saying here.
There was also the play last night too. And look,
do you think the officiating was bad, by the way? Because I know fans were really upset. Do you think it was ultimately a bad night, worse for Tennessee?
I think it was what you expect when you go on the road in conference play, personally. Though the other one that I thought was just unbelievable was, I think it was Broom, when Felix had a great seal and Zakai cut across the paint and shot the layup, made the layup as the shot clock expired. I think it was Shania Broom who literally had a fistful of his jersey.
Yes.
And there's no, like that was.
Billis was apoplectic on the broadcast. Billis was like, I don't know how that wasn't a foul. He has Sakai, like he's got the jersey, like he literally has it.
Stretched out. It was stretched out a good like yard and a good like 5 feet, or at least 3 feet. Yeah, I mean there were some instances of some terrible calls, and look, there was one on the other side too, the one I mentioned with Jemai, when Jemai shot the ball on the side of the backboard and there was no contact and he got a foul. Certainly I thought the whistle was worse for Tennessee, but again, I think that's the nature of the beast going on the road in the SEC. I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you just say, all right, let's hope we get a similar whistle on Tuesday night and Saturday afternoon this week at home.
What's your panic meter on Igor? It was a rough night for Igor on Saturday.
Yeah, I loved your comparison you made in the notes, and it's one that my brother, I think, had said the other day, and I completely agree, is it's just their games aren't necessarily the same, but from a production standpoint, it just feels like he's Olivier. You just don't know what you're going to... He's capable of going for 20 on any given night, and it's not going to surprise you if he scores 4 points. So I think my panic meter, as far as like what I'd hope for him of being a guy that could consistently score every time out in SEC play, scoring about 10 points, and then is also capable every 2 or 3 games to go for 15 or 20 points. I think panic meter there is pretty high. It just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But at the same time, I don't think it's like he's just going to completely disappear and be a nothing for this team offensively. I just think he's going to be a player that proves to be pretty frustrating this season with some of his inconsistencies on that end of the court.
Do you think Chaz Lanier is trending up?
No. I think if anything, I'm more concerned about him playing on the road, playing in big games, big environments.
What is it, though? What are you saying that on the road is worse about what he's going through right now?
I don't know if I could pinpoint it necessarily road versus home. Maybe it's some freedom of movement stuff. Maybe it's teams getting away with more. But I say that, I don't think watching these games at Tennessee, I mean, Mississippi State's grabbing him off screens the other night and they're not calling it. I think what worries me about him is there just doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency when he plays with. I mean, whatever it was, second or third possession of the game, he's got an open dunk and he just goes up like he's playing in the A-Sun so nonchalantly. Like, all right, this is an easy dunk, and he gets swatted from behind. Like, he's not athletic enough and does not have enough burst offensively, or at least burst at the rim, I should say, to be doing anything casually on the offensive end of the court. He's a phenomenal shooter, but he's got to play with urgency to try to get open and try to get looks. And I think he's lacking that some. He was lacking that last night. I love the shot he took to take the lead. I mean, the confidence in that and how deep he took it there with, I think that was about maybe right out at under 4 timeout. After that incredible Felix block on Broom, and since he got out in transition and got that one.
He had a great pull-up 3, too. A deep pull-up 3 in transition. That was just nothing but net.
I think the 2 threes he hit were both basically at the same spot on the left elbow. One just a little bit deeper than the other. But yeah, I mean, I would say, again, I'm like, both the transfers, I'm hitting the panic button in the sense of like what I thought their ceiling could be when we entered SEC play, of Chaz's floor being 15 a night and him being a guy that was going to, flirt with averaging 20 points in SEC game. Like SEC play, I just don't really feel like that's going to be the case. And obviously, I outlined it with Igor a minute ago.
Yeah, but it's kind of what Barnes talks about, which is this is why you want to have the number one defense in basketball, because it's going to keep you in every game. Like we can talk about our offensive concerns with Igor, like him just being the 2025 Olivier for Tennessee. We can talk about Chaz not being what we had hoped in SEC play, but if Tennessee's going to defend like they did against the number one offense in college basketball on Saturday night, they're going to be in every game. Like they can win any game. So it just raises the floor so much. It's frustrating when you can't buy a bucket for nearly the entirety of the first half. But guess what? Auburn couldn't either. And that was because of what you were doing by and large defensively to Auburn. So I don't know. I just think it's going to be a slog the rest of the way. I think Tennessee is going to be dragging teams in the muck, and I think they're going to shoot better at home. Like I think you're going to still have some good to great Igor games at home, shooting wise and rebounds and all that. I think Chaz is going to have some more high volume, like 6 for 12 from deep, 6 for 11 from deep at home. I think he's still going to have several more of those. Might be Tuesday night.
Agree.
But you're just going to have to deal with, like, there's going to be some other ones where it's like, why is Chaz taking 2 shots at the end of the first half on the road at Kentucky? What are we doing? Why is Chaz not doing this? What? Because it doesn't seem like that's something that can get fixed in the middle of conference play. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just doesn't seem like he is. It's not fair to compare him to Dalton Connect, but even Zakai. Zakai plays with the sense of urgency all the time. Like Zakai Ziegler is playing like it's the final possession of every basketball game. Every time he touches the ball, every time they have the ball. Like Jemai too. Jemai has a sense of urgency. Jemai plays hard. Felix Akpara. I think we don't talk about him as the other transfer, but I think Felix has been your most consistent transfer starter of the 3 in conference play. I think Felix has been the best of the 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely most consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's been behind Zakai, the most consistent rotational guy in SEC play. And I completely agree with all of that. A couple points I will say. Zakai played his 58th SEC game of his career on Saturday night. Chaz played 6.
Yeah.
So there's I mean, this is a guy that's been through it and a guy that's all brand new to. I think, and Rick Barnes said it, you said post game, you just said it, like these offensive issues, offensive struggles, bad offensive stretches, those are normal in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think at times some Tennessee fans, and I think this is probably the case with the vast majority of every fan base outside of maybe 6 or 7, college basketball is not college football, so people don't watch just a ton of college basketball outside of their team. Offensive droughts are very normal, but there's a middle ground of where Tennessee needs. They've been bad offensively in SEC play. When you look at the 6 games, like there are droughts, and that happens, and you're not going to be perfect. And overall in the season, they've still been pretty solid offensively. Only 4 spots in efficiency worse than they were last year. But in these 6 SEC games, I think that's the number they're at now. It's 7 now, isn't it? Actually, they're 4-3. Those 7 games as a whole, the offense has been bad, and it needs to be better. So I think there's a middle ground there that you have to find. To me, or just when you're talking about it, you have to find, because Tennessee does need to be better offensively, but some of it's just going to happen either way. And like you said, the defense raises the floor significantly.
What do you think the odds are that they go 3-0 and sweep these home games?
Missouri is the 3rd one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll say 55% is what I'll give them as a percentage-wise.
Who's more? I'm gonna go ahead and assume it's you. It's one of Florida and Kentucky that's got you more worried.
Yeah, I think probably I would say Florida. I think they're a little bit worse of a matchup.
When was this time Barnes got swept by Florida?
I don't think he's gotten swept by Florida, unfortunately. Well, I guess, it goes both ways, but mediocre Mike White's down in Athens these days, so Rick doesn't get to torment him in Gainesville. He gets to torment him in Athens. I mean, just as one-sided as it gets in a coaching matchup right there. Since Todd Golden's been there, it's been pretty much evenly split. Florida's won all the games in Gainesville. Tennessee's won all the games in Knoxville. If you asked me individually, we went down the list. Is Tennessee going to beat Kentucky? Is Tennessee going to beat Florida? Is Tennessee going to beat Missouri? I'd say yes to all of them. And look, I said 55%, so I still think it's over. It's a better chance that they get through the stretch undefeated. But just my general thoughts, kind of like I bet they'll lose one at home somewhere. And I kind of feel like this stretch is more likely for it to happen than anywhere else. Like after this, it's like Alabama's the game you look at, but I don't know. Tennessee seems to have Alabama's number.
I'm not worried about Alabama. Like Mark Sears sat the whole second half. I don't know. I think Tennessee plays Alabama well. I think that'll be fine. I think they'll win. I think they'll beat Alabama.
But that's why I think this week's so big. Is you get through this week and you win both these games and you get to 6-3. On paper, at least, I feel good about Tennessee beating everybody else at home. And if you go 9-0 at home, all you got to do is find a way to you got to beat LSU on the road. You got to beat Oklahoma on the road. Those are kind of non-negotiables, and Oklahoma won't be easy. Then you kind of just got to find a way to win one between at A&M, at Ole Miss, at Kentucky. You win one, and you're 13-5, and you're locked into a 2 seed, and you're gonna have be top 4 seed in Nashville, and you're probably not going to win the SEC, but you're going to be right up there at the top in the conference again. And I think as we sit here right now, and Tennessee's 4-3, who wouldn't take 13-5? So I feel like this is arguably the biggest week of the season for Tennessee, in the sense that you can just afford to lose some of these games on the road. You really need to take care of home court and 2 really difficult games, or 2 big challenges at the very least this week.
I like it. Football. Sam Pendleton, he commits to Tennessee, transfer from Notre Dame. Ryan Schumpert, it looks like he's coming in as a guard, but there is still uncertainty at center for Tennessee with Cooper Mays moving on to the NFL. So you've got William Satterwhite, Max Anderson, 2 blue chip in-house guys who will be redshirt freshmen in 2025. Which is when Cooper, because Cooper wasn't a true freshman when he got the job, right? He was a redshirt. I don't think he started as a true
Correct,
freshman,
yeah.
did he?
His freshman year, he played in some of his jumbo sets as tight end.
But he didn't
remember.
Start,
he'd put on those weird numbers out there in 2020. It didn't have the name on the back, but yeah, redshirt freshman was his first year as a true starter.
What do you think of the addition? What does that actually mean about where the offensive line is headed in 2025 to you?
I don't think it says a ton about where the offensive line is headed. I think you had to get someone from the standpoint of just uncertainty around Karich. And
it is weird we haven't heard anything yet.
Exactly, and the classes have started, so it's kind of like what is he like? I don't know what's going on with him. Like, is he enrolled in school? Is he going through workouts? Like, what's the deal? I think from that standpoint, you needed to add somebody. And it's probably good. It's probably good to add, have depth, and he'll be an option. It gives you a good option at center. I like the fact that he's a multi-year guy, and the fact that he has 3 years of eligibility to play. To me, that's one of the bigger pluses about him. Look, we can do the run around about how Tennessee is not doing well recruiting and developing high school offensive linemen, and all that would be accurate. But we've done that many a times, and I'll spare everybody some negativity on that and just say that I think it's a good pickup, and I feel like all this will work itself out. Like a lot of questions about where he fits. My feeling is that it'll all work itself out.
And the hope is you bring him in because of the uncertainty with Karich. If the idea is as a fallback for center, then you're in a position where it's you might be starting 4 transfers and 1 true freshman in 2025, and that can't happen in year 5 at Tennessee. It just can't happen. And I like Pendleton. I think there's a possibility he's better than what you got from Karich last year, because Karich was okay. Karich did not have a great year at left guard, but it's also that's maybe the battle in the spring. It's Karich didn't show you enough to be all right, we'll pencil in Andre Karich again at that spot next year. And you have a young guy like Pendleton who has multiple years of eligibility, North Carolina kid originally, so come back closer to home, played on obviously the national champion runner-up. Good pedigree, but you don't also elite face mask. I hope he's wearing that face mask at Tennessee. Just elite face mask. Good,
incredible face mask.
I encourage folks to look it up if you're not familiar with the face mask choice from Sam Pendleton. But we need like an orange visor for Boot Carter. That's my other one. Like bring back the orange visors like that Miami was wearing in the early 2000s. Give Boot Carter or maybe one of the receivers. It adds something. Maybe that's the pop that's missing. Is we need an orange visor, the Oakley orange visor for one of the receivers. It just adds it adds something to the game. Can't facts only, man. Facts only. Ryan Schumpert, hashtag analytics. But I just look. I am so curious because I was talking to Adam Sparks of Knoxville News Sentinel last week about this, where we were going through the depth chart, and what I said was like, we can talk about the receivers, we can talk about Nico, we can talk about the running back room. The tackles were bad last year, and if the tackles are bad again this year, because I said, and the season kind of died at Oklahoma, right? Because you saw, this offensive line is not going to be able to hold up in SEC play, and that Tennessee's not going to be able to do what they want to do offensively all year long. And it was like that's where the pivot happened, where it's like we're going to run through Dylan Sampson and we're going to play to our defense, and that's what they did the rest of the season, where the protection, where you're having to go 12 personnel all season long, and that's not what Heupel wanted to do, I'm sure, and that's what you had to do to win games, and you won 10 games playing that way. But you can't do that again next year, and you have to have more growth. The offensive line has to be better. So it's good that they brought in Sam Pendleton. I think if he's another factor at left guard, I think more competition is always good. But man, I hope it's not for center. I really, really hope William Satterwhite or Max Anderson or an in-house guy like even Jesse Perry, they win that job. So at least you have a couple in-house guys. Maybe Sham Umarov wins the left guard job. Maybe you bring in Pendleton and Sham's just better. He's a 4-star guy from Denmark back in the home state from a couple years ago. He's played a little bit. Maybe it's Sham. Maybe he's right there at left guard. But I really, really want to see some of these guys. And there was a lot of hype around this past class that they just signed with Satterwhite, with Anderson, Gage Ginther, Jesse Perry, Bennett Warren. Like they loaded up on offensive linemen in this past class. This class, it's what, 2? Just Agamora and Sanders. I think they were only 2 offensive linemen, right? So they went all in last cycle on the offensive line. Obviously Sanders is going to be right there, but he's the number 1 offensive tackle. He's the number 1 of our overall prospect at one point. Like that's a plug and play. That's almost like a Jeremiah Smith at tackle at this point, where you're like, I don't even know how much that's developing and how much that it is what it is. But I'm so curious how this spring battle goes, and I can't wait to see like who's leading in these spots and where things are at in spring practice and spring ball and the spring game. But man, I'm curious because of how they've operated in the portal on the offensive line and what they're going to do internally, because I don't know. Do you think they're done, or do you think that they still add one more offensive lineman? Because that's the other looming question. Do you still add one more? Because if they add one more, that tells me that that one other person will be a center if they add one more, because I don't know anybody else who makes sense. Maybe another tackle, a vet tackle, just as fail-safe, but I mean, I don't know. Not many tackles are left in the market. I mean, those guys go fast. They're the most important offensive linemen. Like, you don't want to be looking at tackles this late in the process. I don't know. But do you think they take one more?
Not really.
I don't think so.
I feel like we would heard a name by this point. Nick Moore's the other guy Tennessee signed.
Nick Moore, yeah.
Obviously an interior guy, but I lean towards no. I lean towards thinking they're probably set. And look, I think everything you said is accurate. Offensive line's a major question. The one thing I would say I disagree with slightly. You saw the philosophy pivot at Oklahoma. I think Arkansas was really when it was more telling, because you had the starters hurt at Oklahoma. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, maybe it's just you got the backups. You got an issue there. Arkansas is when you saw the tackles be an issue, with Campbell playing, as many snaps as he played in the game all season. Obviously, he never played full snaps all year long, and Lance Hurd back in the fold. But no, I agree with about all you said. Yeah,
the tackles aren't good. The season, it's just not happening. If the tackles have to be good. There's just no way around it. Hurd and Sanders have to be really good. The interior, I just don't really worry as much. I just think they're going to be fine. Center, I don't know. Center, we'll see, because we've seen some center without Cooper Mace, and it's been a struggle. But it's also been that was just very, very different circumstances. And Ollie was a really good left guard for you. I'm curious what happens at I'm curious what happens at center, and if they really go Satterwhite or Anderson, or if they make a late pivot, or it's Pendleton at center or something. But I don't know. I'm very curious what happens on the offensive line this spring here. Ryan Schumpert. Final thing for you, Hunter Ensley. I have a question for you in terms of Hunter Ensley as we do our preview series, because baseball's gonna be here in the next couple weeks, Ryan Schumpert. So I have some guys that I'm curious about in terms of what your projections are. 2025 projections for Tennessee's star center fielder. What are you most curious about with Ensley in his last season on Rocky Top?
I think it's how the combination of how he handles being a more prominent bat in the order / or prominent player on the team / can he be consistent for an entire season? We saw last year he started the year, if I'm not mistaken, hitting in the 2-hole. Started the year really poorly. Was struggling from probably till about the midpoint in SEC play. I know that Florida series is really when he turned it on. And I mean, he was just unbelievable from that point on. I mean, the numbers, both from a power and just getting on base standpoint, were incredible. He was one of Tennessee's best bats, and obviously a lineup that was unbelievable. So I don't expect him to do that for over the course of a full season. I don't think that's a fair expectation. But can he be a guy that hits? And there's obviously going to be slumps and peaks and valleys in baseball, but can he be a guy with some general consistency, hits around 300 over the course of the season, with some pop, with double-digit home runs again, 10 to 15 home runs, somewhere in that range. That's what I'm curious about. As again, not that I think he's going to be the best bat in Tennessee's order, and Tennessee's brought in some guys, but it's not going to be like it was last year when you just have the absolute meat grinder that 1 through 5, and then 1 through 4 and 6 when they moved Ensley to the 5 spot, and then KT to the 6 spot in the order was, because I think that will change the way other teams try to attack him and other teams face him. So I think it's those two things. The leadership is going to be great. The defense is going to be great. And he's going to be just a solid guy overall. I think it's more like how high can his ceiling go over the course of a full season when he is one of, if not, the main star of the team.
I mean, this is kind of like his team now, right?
Yeah, from the leadership standpoint, from the standpoint of he will be the face of the team.
Right.
And I think that goes into how good he played down the stretch. It goes into I'm thinking about it now. Tennessee had some awesome moments in Omaha. This is even a debate, but which I guess is probably no doubt they won the national championship. He had maybe 3 of the 4, probably I'll say 3 out of 5 most marquee moments for Tennessee in the College World Series. The 2 catches and then the slide. And I'll put Dylan Dryling's home run in the 7th inning of Game 2 against A&M, and then Christian Moore just hitting for the cycle. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you throw in some stuff in the Florida State game.
No, you got to throw in Burke. Hold on, you got to throw in Burke. After not going and then hit the game winner. Like, it's got to be Burke. Right.
So we'll say 6. We'll say 3 of the top 6. And it's just a new look team. Now, again, I don't think he's going to be like the bat. He's not going to have the best stats of anybody. He's not going to be where
do you think he best fits? Like, I think there's probably some pressure to put him back at 2, like in the top of the order, but I think he kind of really settled in at 5. Like, I wonder if he settles in still at kind of where he was last year, towards 5 to 7 range, because even being like his team and being one of the older guys, I still think he might. I don't know. I don't know where you put him.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And I'm fuzzy off of basketball, and I haven't been.
We have Abernathy potentially in left, right? He's a potential leadoff guy.
Yes. Yeah, I still think he ends up more being 9-hole guy. I mean, he is a potential leadoff guy.
That's okay
I
too.
think that's a lot to put on a true freshman to be the leadoff guy. He obviously has that skill set. I think. But
I don't think they have another obvious leadoff guy, right?
Sorry, you cut out.
Who would be? I mean, they don't really have another obvious leadoff guy.
No, I think it could be Keelan. I think.
And I think it might have to be Keelan if it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, he would be the other guy I would point to. Heck, maybe it is Ensley. I feel like he's got a little too much swing and miss. and his walk rate, even though he did take more towards the end of the year, probably isn't as high as you'd like it to be in that spot. But like Tony is, if we know anything about Tony, it's that he's very out of character. He's not looking for the archetype at every single spot in the lineup. He's not looking for what's your prototypical leadoff man. Like that's never been how he is. So I would not be surprised to see him do some unconventional stuff there, just because he does a lot of unconventional stuff to begin with.
My favorite, just like crazy one, but I think would actually be pretty solid, is Cannon Peebles.
Yeah. I mean, you don't think of the catcher, and he doesn't have the speed, but just like
he gets on base, great eye,
he gets on base,
walks,
yep, sees a lot of pitches, which is obviously that was one of the things that made Liam Spence such a great leadoff hitter for Tennessee in 21. Yeah, no, I mean, I hadn't really thought about that, but I think I like that. I think I like the thought of Cannon Peebles. And the other thing you have to keep in mind too is, once again, Tennessee is super heavy on left-handed bats. So I think that almost plays into it being maybe more likely that Tennessee has a lefty in the leadoff spot, just from a stagger standpoint, if they try to do that to some level.
What is Gavin?
He's a switch hitter.
Okay.
I think. It's either lefty or switch hitter. I'm pretty sure he's a switch hitter. Could be wrong about that.
Could be a righty too.
Could also, he's either righty, lefty,
or a switch
hitter. I'm 100% sure of that. 100% certainty.
This is why, look, when people are like, hey, who are the experts on Tennessee baseball going into 2025? Look no further. Chase and Ryan got you covered. If you're wanting to know if a guy is a right-handed hitter, a left-handed hitter, or a switch hitter, we can break that down for you here. Somehow it is not on his profile page at Tennessee. They don't know either. Does Tony know?
Let's see if it's on the roster. Yeah, it will be on the roster. Left-handed hitter. So not a switch hitter, but lefty.
This would be great.
People are saying my 66.6% chance of being right. I got it right.
66% of the time, right, it works every time.
Yeah. Oh man.
Ryan Shepard.
I mean,
oh yeah.
This is just a good. I mean, I'm just thinking about it now, especially with Alex Perry out of the fold. At first, it's like Fargo, lefty. Obviously, Curley's right-handed. Fisher's lefty. I mean, there's so many lefties. Ensley's a righty. Chapman would be a lefty. Yeah, I mean, it is super, super heavy on lefties.
And it's just not a lot of high, like, OBP. Like, it just doesn't, there's just not a lot of tradition. I mean, it's Abernathy, but like you said, just putting it on a true freshman, I don't know. But it is Abernathy. Like, that's the answer, but he's a true freshman.
He's the prototypical guy.
Yeah.
He is, if everything goes right, he's the guy.
I think it's Cannon Peebles. If you could pass that along to Tony, I'd appreciate it, because I think Cannon
Peebles I like that idea a lot. And you also have the switch hitter element of it, too.
Yeah.
Which, could give you a little bit more game-to-game stability.
You know what I like about Tennessee baseball going into 2025? They have a lot of guys who could either be right-handed hitters, left-handed, or switch hitters.
Switch hitters. Yeah, true. Almost the entire team. I think maybe even the entire team. I'm going to go run the numbers.
You know what I want Tennessee to do? Like, they're trying to find any avenue of just finding a way to keep things under wrap. Tony just not telling people, have some just not telling anybody what they are, especially we got them working on both sides. We got them. Everyone's a switch hitter. Just tell everyone's a switch hitter on Tennessee baseball.
The point guard. Everybody's listed as a point guard. Everybody's listed as a switch hitter.
Yes.
This could be too. I'm thinking about it. When you talk about maybe the DH spot, maybe Stone Lawless, right-handed bat could be an advantage. Manny Marine, right-handed bat could be an advantage. All that stuff. I think guys that are right-handed hitters that are on the fringe have an advantage, because there's just a lot of left-handed guys that seem like they're going to be in the lineup, at least to open the season. Colby Backus. I got to say Colby Backus for Jack.
Well, I mean, Colby Backus, he's not a leadoff guy either.
No, but I just mean in general, when you're talking about in the competition to earn a spot, he's going to get a bunch of opportunities, and he is a right-handed bat, so he could help balance things out.
For sure. Ryan Shepard, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at RockyTopInsider.com this week?
Yeah, full speed ahead. it feels like the stuff with the transfer portal is a little bit dying down. Obviously, you wouldn't be shocked to see something else pop up. You really never can be in this day and age, but feel like we have an idea of what the roster looks like and what the off-season transfer portal looks like. So there'll be some stuff recapping that, some stuff assessing that. Might throw out the first depth chart projection of the year this week. And then obviously, I said it earlier, arguably the biggest week of the regular season for Tennessee basketball. So we'll have plenty of content on that and everything else you need over at RockyTopInsider.com.
I love it. Ryan Schumpert, thank you as always, my friend, and I'll talk to you next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.